Sean O'Haire stood 6 feet and 4 inches tall. At his peak, he weighed around 270 pounds of solid muscle. He was a genuine tough guy, could fly with the grace of the most agile cruiserweight, and had a natural charisma and aura that is hard to manufacture or fake. Despite having every tool imaginable and untold potential, Sean O'Haire never made it above a certain level in the wrestling business. He worked for WCW, WWE, New Japan, and beyond, plying his trade on some grand stages, but his career, curiously, remains largely forgotten or otherwise overlooked. To those who remember him and witnessed him in full flow, Sean O'Haire stands out as someone who, had things gone differently, could have gone to the very top of the industry. Why that never happened is a tale in and of itself. It's a story of bad timing, rotten luck, self-sabotage, and a performer who, away from the ring, battled demons that ultimately cost him not only superstardom, but his life. My name is Jack from Cultaholic, and this is the true story of Sean O'Haire, wrestling's big what if. Join us. Part 1, Natural Born Thriller. The oldest of 3 brothers, Sean Christopher Haire grew up in South Carolina, where, as a youth, he had a keen interest in taking pictures, winning the National Kodak Medallion of Excellence for photography during his senior year of high school. He was also into more athletic endeavors, playing on his high school football and track teams. He also attended a military academy, became a part owner in a fitness center, and competed in many local toughman contests. He won 17 of those contests, which are basically amateur boxing matches held in various unscrupulous locations, before deciding to get involved in professional wrestling as he entered his late 20s. While living in Hilton Head, South Carolina, O'Haire developed a reputation as being a bit of a troublemaker, and his name was known to local police. He took that reputation with him to WCW's notoriously rough power plant training school, where he survived the grueling workouts and punishing drills and earned himself a developmental contract. While training at the facility, O'Haire became a favorite of coach Paul Orndorff, who appreciated his size, look, and fighting background. He made his live television debut on the June 26, 2000 episode of Nitro, teaming with Mark Jindrak to beat Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera. O'Haire, along with Jindrak, Johnny the Bull, Mike Sanders, Reno, Chuck Palumbo, and Sean Stasiak, soon formed the Natural Born Thrillers, a group of young, fresh talents that WCW planned on building around moving forward. It was a great opportunity for the band of rookies, and O'Haire and Jindrak won the WCW Tag Team titles, the first of 3 times for O'Haire, just a few months into their main roster careers. Unfortunately, WCW was a creative, financial, and organizational mess at this time, and as impressive as O'Haire looked doing backflips, Swanton bombs, and gnarly kung fu kicks, it was for a company that was basically on borrowed time and circling the drain. In early 2001, however, it looked as though WCW and O'Haire had been given a lifeline, when former Executive Vice President Eric Bischoff and Fusion Media Ventures had agreed a deal in principle to purchase WCW. Bischoff was reportedly a huge fan of Sean O'Haire and saw him as being a major single star in the future. Once the company was rebooted, Eazy-E was apparently going to push O'Haire in the manner of Bill Goldberg to try and build him up to main event level. Whether or not that would have worked or not, we'll never know, because Bischoff's bid fell through after Time Warner cancelled WCW's television shows and sold up to WWE in March of 2001. O'Haire's contract was one of those purchased by Titan Sports, and he debuted during the subsequent Invasion angle. With Palumbo, he went after the Hardy Boys and the APA before eventually dropping the WCW Tag Team titles to the Brothers of Destruction. Shortly after, O'Haire found himself written out of WWE storylines and taken off the road. Not really understanding the lay of the land in his new surroundings, there were reports that O'Haire didn't help himself with his conduct backstage, including a time he supposedly, purposefully, disrespected the high-ranking Triple H. What made him lose his spot, however, was allegedly turning up at a house show drunk and nearly seriously hurting Crash Holly after recklessly dropping him on a move gone wrong. O'Haire was sent to WWE Developmental, where he continued to get seasoning and learn the WWE style, while also working house shows, dark matches, and wrestling the occasional bout for weekend shows Heat and Velocity. On the whole, the year 2002 was a bit of a non-event for the next Goldberg, but his fortunes would soon change as he re-emerged with a new and undeniably intriguing gimmick. Part 2. The Devil's Advocate. In early 2003, WWE began airing vignettes on television hyping the imminent arrival of a much different-looking Sean O'Haire. Dressed in a suit, sporting long hair, and standing directly in front of a plain white background while talking directly into the camera, O'Haire extolled the virtues of different vices to the viewers, as he tried to convince whoever was watching to cheat on their spouse, indulge in illicit substances, defraud the government, avoid going to church, and so on and so forth. The vignettes were simple but striking, and all ended with O'Haire, branded by fans as the Devil's Advocate, signing off with the line or catchphrase, "I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know." Soon, O'Haire showed up in the flesh on SmackDown and used his powers of persuasion to get his fellow superstars to do what he wanted. First, he made Brian Spanky Kendrick streak naked through the arena, and then he got Dawn Marie to flash the audience. Was this finally the ticket to the big time for the can't-miss prospect? Well, not exactly, no. The persona was quickly scrapped and O'Haire instead paired up with the returning Roddy Piper. So why did WWE give up on the Devil's Advocate so quickly? Some say that the vignettes, through very good editing, hid O'Haire's weaknesses when it came to cutting promos, something that he struggled with when it came to do them at live events. So it made sense in a way to put him with one of the greatest talkers the business has ever seen, even if the combination of the young, ripped, tattooed guy in the long black trench coat and the aging legend in the kilt was a bit of an odd visual. Under the Rowdy Scott's tutelage, O'Haire scored big wins over the likes of Rikishi, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and even Hulk Hogan, albeit by countout and when the Hulkster was wrestling under a mask as Mr. America. But that was about as good as it would get for Sean O'Haire in WWE. Piper was fired just a couple of months into their partnership following his controversial interview on the HBO Real Sports program, and without Hot Rod around, the company just didn't know what to do with O'Haire. He got stuck in velocity purgatory, suffered injuries in a motorcycle crash towards the end of 2003, reported back to OVW while preparing for his comeback, and then, on April 3rd, 2004, O'Haire was released from his WWE contract. Sources say that the decision for him to leave was a mutual one. Part 3. Life after WWE. After leaving WWE, O'Haire did a few indie shows and had one major match for New Japan, losing to a young Hiroshi Tanahashi in the Tokyo Dome, but he was clearly no longer interested in the world of sports entertainment. The former Toughman competitor had the itch to fight again for real. With his name value from wrestling and MMA's popularity on the rise, O'Haire found himself with plenty of suitors in both the US and in the land of the rising sun. He fought for Pride and later K1, competing in both MMA and kickboxing contests. His MMA record was 4 wins and 2 losses, including a crushing one to Butterbean that O'Haire took on just a day's notice. Over in kickboxing, he had less luck, losing all 4 of his fights. Unofficially, he also had many other amateur fights and unrecorded wins and losses in MMA between 2006 and 2008. His last official wrestling match, a dark match defeat to Scotty 2 Hotty at a SmackDown taping, took place on March 28, 2006. O'Haire also worked a dark match against Trevor Murdoch at the Raw taping the day before, as WWE were having a look at him with a view to possibly bring him back. However, it never happened. After his wrestling and fighting days were over, O'Haire seemingly did a little bit of everything, from working as a personal trainer and a bouncer to a bodyguard and even a hairstylist. Though many who knew O'Haire described a kind and considerate person who had the ability to do so much more, he was also a troubled individual with a dark past. Those lingering issues, as much as anything else, are perhaps what prevented him from going further and doing more in his chosen fields. Part 4. The Troubled Life and Times of Sean O'Haire. As mentioned earlier, O'Haire was well known to local law enforcement in his hometown, and as he moved around the country, police departments elsewhere became acquainted with him as well. He was involved in a countless number of bar fights and was arrested on at least 4 separate occasions for his participation in violent incidents. Just weeks after his WWE release, O'Haire was arrested on suspicion of assault and battery against 2 women at a nightclub, though the charges were later dropped. 2 years later, he was arrested again and charged with assault following another boozy incident at an after-hours establishment. And a year after that, he picked a fight with the wrong man in his Hilton Head hometown, coming out on the wrong side of a fight that left him with fractures to his face and skull. The upshot of this was that he needed to get his jaw and orbital bone socket partially reconstructed with titanium, leaving him with permanently damaged vision in his left eye, something that no doubt seriously hampered his pro-fighting aspirations. He was also arrested in Georgia in 2009 on charges of allegedly assaulting his girlfriend at the time in an unprovoked attack that she claimed was far from an isolated incident. 2 years later, he was yet again arrested in Georgia on charges of battery. Whenever he was in trouble with the law, charges against O'Hare were routinely dropped and he was always released on bail, but it was clear from the pattern of repeat behaviour that O'Hare had big problems, though his short fuse apparently did dim in the later years of his life. From 2008 onwards, O'Hare went to WWE-sponsored rehab 6 times in the span of just 6 years. He had been battling not only substance abuse issues, namely alcoholism, but also depression in the weeks before he was found dead by his father in their family home on September 9th, 2014. Sean O'Hare was only 43 years old. It was a tragic end for someone who was once being talked about as the future of the wrestling business. Had Sean O'Hare had better luck, better timing, used better judgment, or came along in a different era, because I'm sure Bill Watts would have loved his bar fighting acumen, the man could have been a world beater. What if WCW hadn't been sold to WWE? What if WWE had persisted with the devil's advocate gimmick? What if Roddy Piper didn't get fired? What if? Life, of course, doesn't wait around for what if.